Good morning on this Sunday, September 18th, and welcome to the Georgia Gang. Governor Brian Kemp announces a $130 million boost for Grady Memorial Hospital as his opponent, Stacey Abrams, points the finger at him for the closure of Atlanta Medical Center. Also, the stage is finally set for a debate between Senator Raphael Warnock and his Republican challenger Herschel Walker. And an expansion of the Atlanta streetcar could be coming to the Beltline. Melita, Phil, Theron, and Janelle are all here. The debate and discussion begin right now.
From the Fox 5 studios, the Georgia Gang starts now.
This week, Governor Brian Kemp announced a $130 million aid package for Grady Memorial Hospital after the news that Wellstar plans to close Atlanta Medical Center.
While the decision to close was certainly no one's preference, our job is to now move forward together, and to find a viable solution to the needs of the impacted community.
At the state capitol Thursday, flanked by Grady Healthcare CEO and other local leaders, Governor Brian Kemp said the state is dedicating the funds from the American Rescue Plan to increase Grady Hospital's capacity by nearly 200 beds. His opponent, Democrat Stacey Abrams, is using the closure of Atlanta Medical Center as a reason to expand Medicaid and pointed the finger at Kemp.
Instead of addressing and tackling the closures of these hospitals, we know that once again, there will be a small step forward that does not take us anywhere close to the solutions we need.
People that are saying that this hospital closed because there wasn't Medicaid expansion, they are lying to you. The system itself has said that would not have prevented this closure.
Now, Fulton County Commission Chairman Rob Pitt says they are working to bring another healthcare facility to Atlanta to fill the void that will be left by Atlanta Medical Center. Theron, right over to you. This is obviously a huge campaign issue heading into November.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you saw bipartisanship on display. The governor basically is using the money that President Joe Biden and other federal officials allocated to Georgia. There have been a lot of questions of what he's going to do with this money. And so to give $130 million to Grady, I mean, they need it. And these 200 beds is going to go a long way. And I think the one thing that I really want to emphasize is that really the tone of the meeting in the press conference. You know, the governor did what he had to do, but also you heard Michael Thurmond say there's got to be better communications going forward with everyone involved. He also talked about, you know, if you talk about level 1 trauma center, but one of the ways we can reduce the influx of people going there is that we got to reduce the amount of gun violence and people being shot in the metro region. And also, look, Rob Pitt has known that this has been a challenge for a long time, Atlanta Medical Center, but he's also trying to figure out how do you do something on the south side of town with the facility that's still there, that's been transitioned. But I think the one thing that also I want to clarify is that Wellstar made a decision. This was a very tough decision for them, and I think that they are also committed to continuing to have meetings with folks to figure out the best plan moving forward.
And they are a client, correct, Theron?
Yes.
Full disclosure.
Yeah, I disclosed it last week. Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Phil, it was interesting to see Democrats and Republicans together on this issue. We were talking before the show about that.
Well, I agree with you, and I think Theron made a couple good points there, and I would like to expand on one of them, and that is that we've known for at least 2 years, and Wellstar has told everyone who would listen that they're having problems. The indigent care problem, they were being swamped at that facility. They had renovation expenses, et cetera, et cetera. We talked a couple weeks back about having a community-wide effort. Why not help Wellstar and get money to them? However, that was then and this is now. And so I'm glad that the governor and the Democrats got together, as Theron was explaining. I'm glad Rob Pitts and others are trying to identify to get another level 1 trauma center here. So at least they're focused on it now.
Well, Melita, this isn't, as Stacey Abrams points out, this isn't the first hospital to close.
No, it's not the first hospital to close. It's not even the first metro hospital to close. But the other thing that we have to look at is the fact that Grady has been propped up by Fulton and DeKalb County all these years, and yet as the only level 1 trauma center in all of North Georgia, Grady accepts really severe emergency cases by helicopter from all over North Georgia. And so there needs to be some state participation ongoing for the support of Grady Hospital to acknowledge the role that Grady plays for all of the state in the most severe burn and accident and gunshot cases.
And Janelle, to that point, I mean, we're not going to have this money forever. So is it time for the state to, in your words, prop up Grady?
Well, I think that Governor Kemp is making the right decision. I think he's doing the right thing. I think this is what Democrats would want to be done with the money. And I think that the other panelists did a great job of talking about the current situation. Looking forward, I started thinking about what are ways that we can kind of reduce some of these emergencies that are coming into Grady. And I know we touched on crime, and I think that's a big one. One of my favorite eras is the medieval times. So I feel like if you are going to go out and commit crimes and be in gangs and kill people and shoot people, I don't think your bed should be on hold for when we have other people coming in that have other emergencies. So I'm all for kind of pushing gang violence to the side and focusing in on other issues. I think we need to start prioritizing emergencies, and I think that's a good step going forward.
I know Melita wants to weigh in on that.
Well, I don't think that the Hippocratic Oath allows doctors to prioritize which patients they treat. I've seen many heartbreaking accounts of doctors saving the life of criminals in emergency rooms, and I just think that you can't say that doctors get to reserve beds for people depending on how they got to the emergency room.
Janelle, quickly.
Yeah, so again, what I'm talking about is making sure that we focus on the main things. I know falls as well as car crashes are actually ahead of gun violence, so I'm not saying that it's going to, we're just going to simply replace everyone. But I do think we need to focus in on how we are prioritizing our emergency efforts when we going forward.
All right, back to the political realm here. Two new polls out this week, Quinnipiac and Echelon Insights. They show the governor's race tightening. Could Stacey Abrams be narrowing the gap, Phil?
I say no, because if you look at real clear politics, which is the gold standard of all the polling, it's an aggregate of all the polling companies, including Insider Advantage, those are outliers. And, Quinnipiac also oversamples Democrats, in my opinion. And so I think we're kind of right where we are, and Melita and I have been talking about it, and maybe some others. I think there could be a runoff in the U.S. Senate race because they're so tight. It is within the margin of error. We know that Warnock is not at 50% in most of these polls, and so
Well, you all like to jump ahead.
That's the fact.
We're going to get to the Senate race in a minute, okay, in the next block. I'm talking about the governor's race right now. Theron, what is Stacey Abrams doing that she could be narrowing the gap here?
Well, I think, look, if Stacey Abrams was sitting here and Governor Brian Kemp was sitting here, they both would say they're running their race as if they're 20 points behind. And so I think their internals show that this race is tightening because, look, you got an incumbent governor who's got some popularity, but he's also got some negatives that Stacey Abrams is trying to exploit. At the same time, Stacey Abrams has got some positives, but the Kemp campaign and other outside organizations have basically highlighted some of her negatives as well. And you don't spend the amount of money that Stacey has spent on advertisement, and you don't see the gap closing. And so I think that it's within maybe a few points. It's maybe not as close as some polls suggest, but ultimately it's after Labor Day. It's go time. It's all about how they close, and it's really, you see the undecided sort of saying, all right, I'm going to vote either Republican, I'm going to vote Democrat. So that's why you're seeing the numbers kind of getting there. But ultimately, you're still going to go into maybe into October with still about 5 to 6% undecided, and then wherever they break, that's who will be victorious.
Melita and then Janelle.
Well, I think the Target Smart analysis of who's requesting mail-in ballots, showing that more than 60% of those ballots requested are likely Democrats, and also more than 60% are women who are requesting those ballots. So that's an interesting analysis of who may actually show up, which polls don't necessarily tell us.
Janelle, to that note, should Governor Kemp be worried at all?
No, I don't think he should be worried, but I also think that so Governor Kemp is someone who likes to continue to move forward as if he's 10 points behind. That's his method. That's a good strategy, and I think that's what he's going to do. But I don't think he needs to be worried at all because I think that what Governor Kemp is doing is he's targeting everyone. He's focusing on the entire state and every voter, not just Republican. So I think that's a good move for him.
Well, Phil, this week Stacey Abrams is out with new ads pushing for sports betting, saying that Georgians are betting, but Governor Kemp is forcing them to go out of state, missing out on tax money.
Well, I think it's a good ad, but I also think what people forget and should know is that Brian Kemp, the governor, has always said that if the legislature passes sports betting, I'll sign it. So it really is another desperate shot. And I do think, back to Janelle's point, I think the polling shows that the independents in both races, governor and Senate, are moving over to the Republican Republicans. That trend has not stopped.
So she's doubling down on the sports betting campaign strategy. What do you think?
Since we're in the spirit of disclosing our clients, and I think we all should do it, I had the opportunity to work with a coalition of folks last year in the session with sports betting. And you remember the year prior, you couldn't really get it to actual vote because the minority party, the Democrats, locked down because of Senate Bill 202. So last year there was definitely some movement, but ultimately couldn't get it there. And so you're going to see these sports teams, different coalitions of people, you know, the fantasy sports, all of them are going to start getting together. And look, I think it's a smart play on Stacey Abrams' part for two reasons. One, she's reading the polling. I mean, people in Georgia want sports betting, right? And that's all about where the money would come from and where it would go to, and the revenue and minority participation is a big part of it. But then secondly, this is something I think will motivate a different demographic of people who are probably not being polled and who really not are paying that close of attention to the election right now and say, hey, well, let me look at the sports.
And Kemp knows the polling too.
He does.
So they're on both the same side.
I would like to highlight the fact too that I think that this is targeting men, because men typically do sports betting, and I think this is her another last-ditch effort to try to pull in black males, same as the Stacey and the Fellas, which I think sounds like Stacey and the Pips, but that's just my thing. But I think this is just another last-ditch effort to try to pull in black males.
All right, you said Pips, not Pips. Okay. The stage is finally set for a debate between Senator Raphael Warnock and his Republican challenger, Herschel Walker.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Email them at georgiagang@foxtv.com.
Voters in Georgia will see at least one debate between incumbent Senator Raphael Warnock and his Republican challenger, Herschel Walker. Senator Raphael Warnock agreed to debate Walker on October 14th in Savannah. According to the debate rules, I looked them up, Libertarian Chase Oliver will have to meet a 10% threshold in the polls, and that's not
for office before, so that was laughable. But I do think we also got to be very